Welcome to Brand New Taste, a podcast for brands in the food and beverage industry, focusing on new innovation and how understanding taste is vital to commercial success. Your hosts are Brandt Maybury and Micah Carr-Hill, co-founders of the leading development agency, Tastehead.
This episode is an interview with Joe Woolf, co-founder of the vegan gummy brand Tasty Mates. Joe and Nick were actually one of our early clients at Tastehead, back in 2019, when they reached out to us for help in developing a new range of gummies that were plant-based, naturally delicious, and part of a brand that existed to make a positive impact in the world, all around the idea of us all looking after our mates. Tasty Mates launched in 2020. Not the easiest year for a new brand launch, but that didn't deter them. They managed to secure an early listing with WH Smith's and have since grown to now also be stocked in Ocado, Holland & Barrett Online, Daylesford Organic, WeWork, and recently on Virgin Atlantic. They had already managed to cross the Atlantic with some early listings in the US and are now set for a larger launch across a number of retailers in America, Canada, and Australia. They've certainly had their challenges over the past 3 years, not made any easier by having to set up their own production facility to begin producing their gummies. This is why I thought it would be great to have Joe as a guest, to share his insights and stories on how they doubled down through the pandemic, overcame their challenges, and are now producing over 100,000 units every month, with very exciting plans for future growth. I hope you enjoy the episode, and if you're a startup, or just a brand looking to grow through challenging times, you take some inspiration and positivity from Joe's story. You can find out more information on the brand, product range, and their Mates in Need initiative on tastymates.co.uk. But for now, here's our interview with Joe Woolf. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Really pleased to have one of our clients on the podcast, and I thought that Tasty Mates would just be the absolute perfect fit. So ahead of this episode, I went through our email chain to see exactly when you first got in touch with us, and it's almost 4 years to the day.
That's mad.
It's the 31st of May in 2019. You said you were looking to develop recipes as soon as possible for as low as cost as possible before taking to investors.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
No, that's a very common brief that we get from startup inquiries. You already had the name Tasty Mates at that point. So my first question has to be, how did Tasty Mates come about?
Yeah. I mean, we approached you very early on in the journey. It was, I think we were probably about a month since the concept was even thought of.
Yeah.
So the financial side of things sounds about right, because that was probably the where we were up in terms of any savings we had. But the idea initially came, and I think in order to understand the idea, that the brand is important as well, in the fact that each of our flavours portray a personality trait. So the idea is Tasty Mates, every different pack has a unique flavour relating to a personality trait often found in a friendship group. And the idea came about because one of my mates was winding me up, really winding me up. And I dubbed her the salty one in the group. And it sort of just evolved from there, and a bit of snowballing. And obviously, I think I've always been into writing business plans and coming up with ideas. And I remember, writing a business plan in recruitment, and it bored the hell out of me when I read it back the next day, or in some sort of parking idea, boring as hell. But when this idea came about, I wrote it up as a business plan, and that's really where it started. And the name initially on every document that I first wrote, or on the voice note that I recorded the idea on, was Mates. And it took me about 2 or 3 weeks before I was informed reliably that Mates was the name of a condom brand. And so we decided to add Tasty in front of it. I'm not quite sure, but we didn't want to associate ourselves with that too much.
Potential sub-range?
Maybe one day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you started Tasty Mates with your mate, Nick. Both of you have got a background in branding, a little bit of PR, marketing. How useful was that starting a new food?
It was incredible. I mean, my personal background's much more in the PR side of it, but Nick with the branding aspect was one of the reasons I approached him actually in the first instance, and we've been mates for a while, and I actually happened to see him the week of the idea. We just wherever we were, and it sort of made me think, you know what, let's just see if we can draw it out. So I told him the idea. He seemed to like it. He drew it out, and a week later he came back. He was like, "I love it. Let's give it a go." And that was, it from day one to now, it's been invaluable having that experience behind us.
Yeah, and also something we were speaking about before we hit record, the benefits of having a co-founder.
Oh, it's amazing.
We were both saying how, even though looking back, technically, there's probably nothing that we couldn't have done on our own. There's no way we would have wanted to have done it on our own. And it's so amazing and just supportive to have someone else to start a venture with.
Yeah, and it's bouncing ideas off each other, or it's venting when someone or something winds you up, or it's like you say, we've learned a crazy amount of information over the last 3-4 years since we first started working on this, and almost anything I'm sure we could have found the answers to. But having that, I think it's that point of anything we could have done, but I wouldn't have wanted to do any of it without someone by your side. It's incredible having someone to work with, and just bounce those ideas off.
Yeah, I mean, for Micah and I, we've been working together now. It's 10 years now, because we were working at Green and Blacks before we started Tastehead, and we've been working in product development for years and years. But even to this day, like most weeks, if not most days, I'll have to call Micah or sit down with him and be like, just want to chat to you about this. What do you think? And 90% of the time it's a case of, yeah, absolutely, you got it right. But then there are all those times of like, actually, have you thought about this? And it's just so supportive having someone.
I don't reckon there's been, I could probably count on one hand the days in the last 4 years that I haven't spoken to Nick on the phone. And that's, it says it all.
It says it all for sure. Okay, so you came to us. We started on the product development process. One of the things that I'm keen to get your kind of unique experience and insight in is the process of raising investment. When about did that sort of come on your radar as something you need to start looking into? And how did the process go? Because you've done a couple of rounds now. How was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, when we first approached you, we hadn't done any investment rounds. It was completely, we're going to dedicate our savings to getting this to a point where we can then go and get investment, build the brand, build the idea, and have a sample product. After we did our first round of samples with you guys, we had lined up a handful of investors. I think we got around maybe 5 or 10 packets of each flavour sampled, and we were very I was desperate to eat through them all. Nick was much more in control, and he kept all the sweets in his flat because otherwise they would have all gone. But we used those packets very strategically, and we used some of them to go to investors, put them out in a nice sort of display, and give them one sweet of each flavour just to try. We sent a couple off to 2 specific retailers. But in terms of finding the people to invest, I'd say the biggest thing was just talking about the brand to everyone and anyone that I would meet. And I remember speaking about it to people and thinking, what am I doing talking about a sweet brand that hasn't really got anything going for it, in terms of stores or investment or any sort of brand equity in the market. And it was really just that talking. And I happened to be in a meeting with someone who liked the idea, and I kept asking more and more questions, and emailed through maybe a week later, completely out of the blue, saying, come in for a meeting. I'm interested in hearing more. And that was really what snowballed it. And then they introduced us to their network. And once we got that first sort of lump, that first investment in principle, it allowed us to then have that bit of confidence to say, start speaking about it further with more people. And look, I would say the first round was much more family and friends round. And I think pulling on your network, your initial circle and maybe their circles is really important. But as you grow and that money becomes slightly more strategic, then those sort of people you approach change.
So one of the things that you used your first round of investment for was to do your first production run.
Yeah.
And as part of the project, as with most of our startups, or I'd say many of the startups that we work with, we were developing a very innovative, challenging product, but actually the most challenging aspect was trying to find a suitable co-manufacturer for launch and your volumes. And in the end, you went down the route of setting up your own commercial kitchen, which, let's be honest, is the last thing that you want to do when you've created this brand,
Right.
You're ready to start selling, and all of a sudden you've got to run a factory, essentially. What was that experience like?
Yeah, crazy, mad. I honestly, looking back, I don't understand why we did that. I mean, I understand why because we had to, but looking back, it that there's the idea of like we had to grow slowly and steadily and prove ourselves in the market, and that was the only way we could do it. But I in some ways, maybe it was probably in hindsight, maybe it would have been an idea to go take the leap on these massive volumes. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. At the time, we couldn't invest in 100,000 units of stock because we would have been sitting on that. I wouldn't necessarily have. We didn't know it was necessarily going to go to where it is now. But yeah, I think the first round of investment was to set up the kitchens. We were learning everything from scratch. Used you guys loads. I'm sure you remember those calls of like where to buy certain things and what we do with. But it created its whole set of challenges, and it did take some element away from the brand side. But again, it's where it comes down to having a co-founder. We were able to split our times. We managed to build a network of people around us who helped us in the early stages, which really helped us get through that. And especially, it was a lot of constantly making to order. So we were in the kitchens 24/7. It was especially right at the beginning.
And when you say 24/7, that is literal, because one of the things I was going to come on to ask you, and obviously we'll do now, is what was the most you produced in a day? And you've got a nice little story on that.
Well, we were planning on being set up in the kitchens on, I think it was the 1st of November of whatever it was, 2019, I think, or 2020. And because of delays on signing the lease and fitting out the kitchen and all of the health and safety regulations that you have to do in order to produce product to go on the shelves, we didn't end up having our kitchen ready to produce until Christmas Eve, the 24th of December that year, which we were already cutting it tight. We had a deadline for our first major listing due to launch on February the 1st. And we had worked out the numbers that it was just doable if we started on November the 10th. So we had we gave ourselves that 10-day leeway. In the end, we were delayed by another month and a half. So we realized we needed to ramp up production pretty swiftly. So I was doing the 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. shift every day, and Nick had the graveyard shift of 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. And
what day did you start?
We started on Christmas Eve was our first day, the 24th of December, and we did every single day up until the 31st of Jan, except we gave ourselves a couple of hours off on Christmas Day to go and have lunch with our families.
Slackers.
Absolutely.
You should have just got one of those Christmas dinner sandwiches from
from M&S. Yeah, exactly. But it was also a really amazing experience for us because we couldn't have done it on our own. And we also hadn't hired a team yet. We were very early stages. And we pulled on our friends. And I remember there was one day we sat in a room and we gave all of our friends who might help us out over the next month a briefing on health and safety and how to do this and that and all of that sort of stuff. And we then created a WhatsApp group and asked for availability. And we had 5 people every shift minimum helping us. And because I think it was the second lockdown or third lockdown, and because a lot of our friends were on furlough, the only way they could see each other was by coming together and working in a facility where you were allowed to open a manufacturing facility, and B, they were on furlough, so why not? They had nothing to do in the day or in the evenings. So we had 5 people every shift helping us churn out these sweets, and it really honed in on this idea of like the whole brand is about friendship and about mates, and our mates really came through, and we ended up on the 31st of January, when was it 30? Yeah, the 31st of January. The collection was due at 8 a.m. on the 1st of February, and it was probably about 4 a.m. where I left the factory on the 1st of February, and Nick came back at 8 a.m. to deal with the delivery.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Did you find any, or have you found any benefits to having gone through that and actually producing them yourselves, literally? Has that been something that you've been able to take into meetings with retailers, investors, and just show that you really are living and breathing the brand and the product?
Yeah, totally. I mean, not just the stories and the anecdotes and the learnings from that, and being able to take that to retailers or using it as marketing tool or whatever that is. That experience, I mean, what was it? It was probably a couple of weeks ago. I was in our factory, and the first run of our peaches and cream flavor came off, and I tried it as I always do. Why not? And it just tasted a little bit off, and I knew straight away what was wrong with it. And we went straight back into the kitchens, and we just played around with the flavorings and whatever, and got it back to where it was. And I wouldn't have had the slightest clue how to do that if we didn't spend the first 16 months or so making everything by hand. And I personally, after that first month or so, I wasn't necessarily in the kitchen every day. We had a team that helped us with that, but I would be up there enough to know how to play around with the recipe and really understand what it was we were doing and how to get back to where it was. And probably for the first time in a real life experience a few weeks ago when I was at the factory, that was where it came in handy, and it was really, really beneficial.
And one of the challenges of producing them yourselves is you were literally doing them by hand. You didn't have the fancy starch molding technology that these products are typically produced with by a factory. And actually, thinking back through the development of the product, there's obviously a lot of work and revisions to get the taste and the flavors just right. But I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how to get the gummies to dry in time, because people don't realize that you make a typical gummy bear recipe for a factory, and it can take weeks and weeks and weeks for it to dry and not be sticky any longer, because they use this starch molding technology, which, for the benefits of people listening who aren't familiar, it's essentially a bed of corn flour where a metal press stamps in the shape of your mold. The then liquid hot mixture of the gummy is injected into it, and then it goes into what do they call the ovens? Autoclave or something. It goes in there for a matter of like hours or even a day or two to dry out, so that you have something that within a day or two is, you know, something you can pick up and it's not sticky in your hand. You didn't have that capability. We had to use silicone molds, etc. And so that was a bit of a challenge, figuring out how are we going to get a recipe that you can produce and it be ready within days, not weeks, to handle and pack.
Yeah. I mean, if I would have known that before, maybe we wouldn't have gone down the gummy route. We might have gone to like chocolate or crisps or something a little bit easier. But yeah, that was our biggest challenge from day one. And one of the things which we didn't consider was when we were doing it in small scale, practicing at home or with you guys in the kitchens here, it was one batch, fine, done. It would take X amount of time to dry. But what we didn't consider was we were cooking 24/7. So the whole kitchen was condensation everywhere. It was hot in there. It had body heat as well, body temperature. There was 5 people every minute of every day in there. So the drying, okay, it was in a separate room, separate area of the kitchen, sealed off, but it's still, the whole environment was really hot in there, and damp, and that was the issue. And we got to around halfway through the first month of production and realized we need to sort something out, because these aren't going to be ready in time. They're meant to take 7 days or 10 days, whatever it was, to dry. in the way that we'd practiced and set up, and they were taking double that minimum. And so it was that was a massive challenge, and we had to work out a way around that. Invest more money into sealing off certain areas in a certain way, and making sure that we had room temperature gauges on everything. And it really was, and it was all to a deadline. We couldn't miss this order. It was a massive client. It was our first launch. We'd been given a deadline, and you don't want to muck up on your first delivery. So yeah, that was definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Let's talk about the actual gummies themselves, because genuinely we all love the taste of them, and was really pleased when we started working with you guys, because the brief was somewhat broad at the start in terms of what could we do on the nutritional side of things. You wanted to do the best that you could, both in terms of good for you, good for the planet, and what I think we were really pleased to see is that you wouldn't compromise on taste. And so the early part of the project was figuring out where's the balance, where do we get something that is ticking as many boxes as possible without compromising on taste. And also, this category I think is full of products that are just over flavored, and they might even be using natural flavors, but they don't always taste that natural. And we were really pleased that you wanted to go down this route of them being well balanced, almost sort of fresh tasting. And so the flavors that we or you did go with, how did they come about? And one of the questions that I want to ask you is particularly about the salted caramel flavor, because that is one that you wouldn't think is an obvious fit for a gummy product. And it was actually Lucy, our project manager at Tastehead, that wanted to know why did you choose salted caramel. So yeah, just a little bit about the flavors and what your kind of thinking was around those.
I mean, so it comes back to the brand ultimately, and salted caramel was actually the first flavor, because the whole brand was around one of my mates winding me up and me dubbing her the salty one in the group. So that's really where it started. And salted caramel is obviously a trend, and it was popular at the time, and it still is. But there was nothing like that in a gummy sweet, and why not? I've seen marshmallow, seen ice cream, seen chocolate, popcorn. Why not a sweet? And we actually find it's the one that people struggle getting their head around initially, so might not necessarily pick it up from the shelves as a first sort of entry point. But often it's the one that we get the most repeat custom of, and people buying it in box loads from our website. So that's the salted caramel. In terms of the other flavors, pear crumble was really the one we felt was spoke to our brand the best, in terms of it represents the perfect pair, the couple in the friendship group, and it was a really nice sort of story. The berry flavor, which is the berry funny one in the group, again speaks to the brand, but also it was important for us to have an entry level product, because we do know that our products are quite unique in terms of flavors, and we were a new brand and we didn't have that brand equity. So in order to bring people in, having a very berry flavor was important. And in terms of peaches and cream, I mean, I'm a sucker for peach sweets, and like those sort of peach, whatever they're called, but they always taste a bit artificial.
Yeah, agreed.
And so I really wanted to try and get peach right, and I really feel, and it's the one I eat through a lot of in my working day.
I surprisingly like that one, because I wouldn't normally go for it. I think the berry one is probably my favorite, but I agree. I like the salted caramel one, and that was a bit of a surprise maybe. And I guess that leads me on nicely to my next question, which is around sampling, because you've just said how important sampling, or well, it must be if you've got a flavor that there's a slight barrier there for people, but if you can get them to taste it, they actually really enjoy it. And so I think back to when I saw you at Taste of London, was it last year?
Yeah.
And you guys were literally one of the busiest stands there. You just had such a buzz, and people just coming up, and you could see the faces when people had tried them, loved the product. How important has those consumers sampling and just that direct engagement with your consumers been?
It's been for various reasons. It's been special, I think, and I think the two sides of it is, one, from a personal point of view, it's so nice to just take a step back occasionally and watch people enjoying the product, um, and engaging with the brand and listening to our story. And we've done Taste of London twice already, and last year there was one session where I think we overstaffed, probably by mistake, where we had a few other people and some mates came to help, and it was actually the first time where I stood back. I decided for 20 minutes I'm not going to engage with anyone. I'm taking the Tasty Mates hoodie off, and I'm going to stand back and just look like a punter. And for 20 minutes I stood there and just had the biggest like smile on my face. I was beaming, and it was really nice just watching the team engage with people and talk about it with passion as well. And then the other side is, for us, our whole brand is centered around mates, and our biggest mission, our purpose, is to promote meaningful moments with mates. And that those samplings we do, we always try and incorporate something into it, where just text a friend, check in on them, and get a free, have a bag of sweets. Or even on social media, it's important to us to promote those, get people talking to their friends and get people checking in after a long day of work or exam pressures or relationship stress or whatever that might be, the day-to-day things that everyone goes through, just checking in on your mates. And what better way than grabbing a pack of sweets and going for a walk with them, or grab a pack of sweets and go and watch some TV with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're listening to Brand New Taste. Your hosts are Micah Carr-Hill, food scientist, product developer and taste expert, who has held the position of head of taste at premium brands Green and Blacks and Corsten Press. And Brandt Maybury, development chef, taste specialist and managing director of Tastehead, leading innovation projects for brands of all sizes.
One of our guys at Tastehead went to New York a few months ago and messaged everyone straight away, Tasty Mates are here, I've spotted them. So quite early in your journey as a brand, how did that come about? Crossing the pond?
Yeah, initially through a trade show. And I can't remember which one it was, but we met someone who is a distributor in the sort of northern states in America, and has a couple of different shops, including the Chelsea in the Chelsea market and in New York. And he loved the product, and I'm actually meeting him later today. He's in the UK, but he loved the product, and he wanted to send them over, and they've gone down really well there. People seem to be loving it, and actually off the back of it, we've got some really exciting launches to announce in the next month or so across in America and a few other countries around the world. But it's also important to us to remember, the UK is the territory we want to conquer, and these other places they're amazing. They're great in terms of distribution. They're great in terms of increasing the brand awareness. But we are very, very conscious that we haven't necessarily made our name yet in the UK, and that is the market that we are looking to dominate first and foremost.
Yeah, so you're not going to overstretch yourself, but when these opportunities come along, if they are right and you can, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And we often find, as long as placement of the product is good, we end up really, it sells itself. The colors of the packs, the idea of the brand, people seem to just pick it up and try it, and once they've tried it once, we seem to get decent repeat purchase.
So we spoke about you starting out in your own commercial unit. You're now finally with a manufacturer that you can scale up with. How has that process gone, transferring from your own unit to a manufacturer? I'm sure it's been challenging. You've learned some things along the way.
Yeah, totally. Learned loads. It's been a challenge. There's definitely been things we've had to discuss, and whether that's from a financial point of view, whether that's from a product point of view. So one thing we really wanted was to be gluten free, so we changed our coating of the product at one point, and the factory, it became easier for the factory to then also facilitate that. So we've sort of taken the learnings of the first year, the customer feedback, consumer research, and been able to use that to adapt to scale. But in terms of challenges, to find a factory that actually can make the product that we wanted to make took us a long time, and probably, well, definitely took us about 4 or 5 months more than we would have liked from the point where we decided we were outsourcing, and that created a massive strain on what we could produce, cash flow, cost of cost of sale, gross margins depleted, that sort of stuff. So it's been a whole sort of process to get to this point. We're now really happy with our manufacturers. We've been working with them for almost a year now, and they love our product. They love us as a brand. We love them as manufacturers, and we've got a really nice working relationship that allows us to go there and work with them on new and exciting projects as well.
Great. What would you say has been the most challenging period for the brand, and how did you overcome it?
I think every day is a challenge. Every day is a challenging period. I think starting any business, you have to know you are putting out fires every single day, and the job title shouldn't be entrepreneur or co-founder or anything. It should be firefighter. I think that's what it is. And if you can put out the fires, you keep going until there's you can't put out those fires anymore. And I think it's hard to pinpoint one, because right now I would probably say there's, it's probably cash flow. We're going through that really exciting period of massive growth, but also how do you manage that growth whilst making sure you're being as efficient as possible. But if you'd asked me that question a month ago, I probably would have said something to do with supply chain, or a month before that, something to do with rate of sale in a specific shop. So it is really, balancing that, and every day is a different. But that's the exciting part, and as long as you've got that passion and that drive and desire to get to your destination, it's all a learning curve and enjoyable journey.
Where do you think the confectionery category in general is heading?
I think there's definitely a push towards that sort of health side of things, whether that's the new HFSS regulations, which sometimes are out and sometimes aren't, but a lot of stores are actually implementing them anyway. But the challenge is people still want that sugar hit. So we're in this point where we're trying to create that balance between, we want people to have that luxury item. We don't want to control people. We are old enough and wise enough to work out if they want to have a bag of sweets or not. But it's also making sure we're accessible to as many people as possible. And that's when we came to you in the first instance. That was our whole thing. We wanted to be as accessible to as many of our mates as possible. Hence why they're vegan. Hence why we use natural flavors and coloring. Hence why we wanted to be gluten-free, palm-free. All of that was really important to us. So at this point, we're now aware that there are a large amount of people who want that sugar hit, and we'll keep our products going, and that is one space of the market. But it's also important to us to work on projects that maybe access other markets as well. And we're currently we're hopefully towards the end of this year launching a HFSS compliant range, much more aimed at a younger audience, whether that's packed lunches or that sort of side of things. And that's a really exciting project we've been working on. And we have made a product. We've developed a product that pretty much tastes exactly the same as our sweets.
Brilliant.
And we worked with you on this very early on because we wanted to create that. And we've used the bulk of that to create this product, which tastes pretty much the same. The flavors are our, like you said, our big selling point. And so using the same flavors, natural colorings. So you almost wouldn't even taste the difference. But they still have the same, they have those zero sugar claims is the aim.
Excellent. Yeah. HFSS. One day it'll all have landed and we'll know what's going on, but it continues to be the bane of our lives as well, to be honest a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that HFSS compliant range. Can you tell us about any other plans that you have for the future?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've got this year's is, and it's just about getting the timings right and working out when what launch is happening. But we are launching soon with uh, in a collaboration with one of Britain's most loved TV characters. So that's a really exciting one. And more about that will hopefully be on my LinkedIn or all over our social, to be honest, once it does launch. And that's one we are super excited about, but we want to get that launch absolutely spot on.
Sure.
And then we've got, like I said, the HFSS compliant ranges, hopefully towards the end of this year. And 2 new flavors we're working on as well. And the insight I can tell you is they're both going to be sour.
Okay.
So that's something we felt was missing from our range. But the personality traits always come first, and we don't want to just dub them as the sour one in the group. We've already got the salty one. So the flavors, the concept around it, and also the partnerships we're working on with one of them specifically, with another brand, are really exciting, and they taste phenomenal. And I'm really excited to get that out in the market.
Oh, really exciting. Sour ones are always the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
My little one, Oscar, he'll love those when he can get his hands on them, I'm sure.
There we
He
go.
loves the
We'll make sure
existing
we get
range.
some over.
Excellent. He'll be happy with that. What are your top 5 tips for somebody that's considering starting a food or beverage brand in 2023? Leaning on all of your learning so far, if you had 5 tips to give them, what would it be?
I think I've mentioned it before. I think problem solving is, if you're a problem solver, go for it. I think that's the key thing you need to be as a person, and you can learn that, I'm sure. But that's something that will come up and crop up every single day. I'd say networking, but organic networking. I think one of the things people, and particularly younger people, mistake networking for is going to a networking event. And it's a bit, I don't love it's important to go. I don't love them. And I think one little anecdote there is, we've actually just brought on one of our advisors, is very high up at Ogilvy, PR agency. And the relationship with them started when I think I must have been at school still, 17. I did a week or 2 weeks work experience there, and she was sort of the person in charge of the team I was working under. And I just stayed in contact over the last 10 years almost, and kept her, on LinkedIn, and kept her updated, and asked when I was looking at potentially more work experience or whatever it was, and just kept in touch. And when Tasty Mates launched, I sort of went to her and spoke to her about it, the branding side, the PR side of things. And she's now helping us on a regular basis. And that's what I mean by networking. Not that sort of going to a networking event, but keeping in touch with the people you actually do meet and have a relationship with. I think maybe being just passionate about what you're doing. If you haven't got the passion, and this is where it comes back to that idea of, I used to write business plans the whole time, and the ones in recruitment, I had no passion for recruitment. It was never going to work. Like, whether it was a great idea or not, I was never going to be the one to achieve that. So have a passion for what you're doing, so you can speak about it with passion, because people buy people and people buy their passion. And that is absolutely the crux of it. And whether it's you're speaking to retailers, or whether you're speaking to a Taste of London consumers, or whether you're speaking to investors, they're buying you. They're not necessarily buying the balance sheet or the bottom line, because the truth is, the bottom line, I think I saw something, 99%, 100% of budgets are 99% wrong, or 99% of budgets are 100% wrong, something like that. And that is absolutely true. And investors know that. I think also patience. I think patience is a key one. Nothing happens overnight. We launched last week with Virgin Atlantic on board and in their lounges. We've been speaking to them for about 15 months. And every month it's like, it's going to happen next month. It's going to happen next month. It's finally happened, but being patient is massive. And I guess it's perception as well of a brand. How do you build that brand? How do you use the story of the brand, and how you're getting your purpose out? Because people want to support small businesses. People want to support people. And if you are the center of that, and you have a good story behind it, and you have a good purpose behind it, and something that people care about as well, you'll fly.
I think it's a really good point around passion and perception and that purpose. We've had, from the hundreds, probably thousands of inquiries that we've had over the years. We do get every now and again someone who is just thinking commercially. It's someone who might even work in banking or something. They're like, I've seen this opportunity, no one's done it, and I want to do it. And they're like, yeah, I don't really drink the product or eat the product, so it's not really something that I would buy, but I know some people who do. I've never seen one of those inquiries come to fruition.
Yeah.
I think if I was to go through our list of clients and projects and see the ones that have been the most successful, I bet you they're the people that we also would have pointed out as being the most passionate, without a doubt.
Totally. And I think that's, a trend now that wasn't a trend when Cadbury's set up, or Mars, or all these big companies. I'm sure there was some story behind it. But if you look at the brands, the challenger brands now, every single one of them that I come across that has got to the stage where they're doing trade shows and they're in stores, there's something good there. They're doing something good, and this is a really important point, and actually something that is really hard to achieve as a brand, but it's really important to achieve it, is you cannot whitewash it. You cannot greenwash. You cannot do any of this washing stuff, because customers read into that.
Yeah.
And you've got to genuinely care about it. And it's not just doing this one-off thing that supports some sort of charity. It's got to be part of why you're doing it. And it might go wrong for you at some points. Tony's Chocolonely has an amazing brand purpose, and they tried to Christmas a couple of years ago, maybe didn't put a chocolate in one of the days of the calendar.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone saw that on the news or whatever, and that might have been the wrong decision, but it got their purpose and their brand out, and for that, their consumers, or at least the marketplace, really respects them for sticking to their guns on that.
Yeah.
They might not do it again, but they might.
Brilliant. Well, we're coming to the end of this, and I always like to finish with a couple of just quick fire, fun, personal questions. First one is, what would your desert island dish be?
See, I've got a real sweet tooth, so I'm going to
You
go
can't
with
say a
dessert.
bag of Tasty Mates.
No, okay, fine, fair enough. I'm going to go for a dessert, and I'm going to go banoffee pie.
Ooh.
Love a banoffee pie, and it's the one thing I can make. So that's it. Other than sweets, obviously.
Yeah. Quite a polarizing one, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, 50-50. A bit like salted caramel. You either love it or it's not for you, and that's fine.
True. Favorite restaurants?
I've got to say, I think I'm going to go with a bit of a local, and I don't know if the world will know it, but I do very much enjoy a nice Kyoto.
I know Kyoto.
Do you know Kyoto?
Japanese,
yeah,
really good.
really. I mean, I'm a sucker for sushi, but yeah, that's my sort of go-to takeaway.
Yeah, we've ordered from there a few times. I like to get a combo of one of the noodle dishes, a little bit of sushi, a couple of other bits.
Bit of miso soup on the side. Yeah, 100%.
Comforting.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
like that.
Sunday night, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you have a book, a podcast, a website, anything that you could suggest to our listener that might, point them in the direction of something you found to be a really good resource?
Yeah, I think the two books, I would say, and there's plenty of podcasts, and but the two books I would say that I thoroughly enjoyed and got a lot from was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike. And that was brilliant in terms of just understanding entrepreneurship and understanding the problem solving thing, the problems and the challenges that he went through from day one to get to where they are now, and being able to find the right niches in the market and watch. It's a really, really great story. And the other one, which is maybe more food specific, is Daniel Lubetsky, Do the Kind Thing. He's the founder of Kind Nut Bars. And the story is brilliant, and his journey is brilliant. But there's also a lot of important learnings from it in terms of things like what we've discussed about sampling. There was one stat in there, which is from year one, where he did X amount of sampling, where he quadrupled the amount of samples he gave out the following year. His sales shot up by tenfold or whatever those numbers were. And those sort of things. And actually, since reading that, we ended up creating a sample pack size after reading that, a 26-gram pack, where we just give them out in trade shows or on the streets or with boxes and those sort of stuff. And that has been incredible for us as well.
Great. And so finally then, what else have you got going on in your world that you'd like people to know about?
Oh, wow. I mean, work feels like it's 24/7 to be honest. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, just socializing is really important. And actually, I probably should have put it in my top 5 tips for anyone starting a business. Don't just get bogged down in the day-to-day. Like, one of the beauties about having your own business is that your time is your own. And so if it is a 9 a.m. coffee, go for it and just do an extra hour of work in the evening, right? Like, there's as long as you utilize your time well, socializing is a absolutely integral part, because there's nothing better than seeing your mates and just down tools and hearing what they're doing and them being excited by what you're doing and bigging each other up. And that's something which I would say is, other than work, I spend most of my time socializing, and obviously keeping yourself fit as well.
Look after yourself.
Sport,
physically,
mentally. Like, get a gym membership, even if it's not for the physical, just the mental side of things of going and just being in that environment is really, really worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're finished with that, because as inspiring as it is to hear those stories about those 24/7 shifts around Christmas time, etc., doesn't mean that you should be doing that all the time, because you're just going to burn yourself out.
And yeah, I would say that month, you might have to go through that month once or twice.
Sure.
But that should not be every day. And having that time to yourself is just as important as doing those hours.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Joe. I think there's a world of insight there, and it's such an amazing journey that you've been on. I was just so proud and happy to see the brand going from strength to strength. And it feels like we're doing this almost too early, because I feel like in a couple of years
we'll come back.
Yeah, let's do another one. Yeah, and Oscar will be looking out for his sour sweets.
Perfect. There'll be first class delivery.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Cheers, Brandt.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And for more information, please visit tastehead.com. We hope you join us for our next episode.